Good afternoon. I'm Jim Holcomb, and I served as your president from 2018 to 2020. Worker protection has always been a cornerstone of our industry. Advances in personal protective equipment continue to reshape how we approach safety, compliance, and injury prevention. George Stallings joins us today to discuss the evolution of head protection technology and what the future may hold for improving worker safety throughout the construction industry. Please join me in welcoming George Stallings.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It was interesting. The last speaker had a great topic about saving lives and about people's lives and how important people's lives are. And he mentioned that the insurance seemed to be the biggest topic, and he lost half the group, and I lost the other half. So thanks for allowing me to come and talk about the evolution of head protection in construction from hard hats to helmets. And one of the, where's my clicker? I'm looking, is there a clicker up here? Is this it? That's a pointer. There we go. One of the, if you ever watched the movie, The Big Short, at the end of the movie, that's a movie about the 2008 financial collapse. There's a phrase in there, it's the saying is that what you don't know that gets you in trouble, it's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And especially in a room with a bunch of scaffold builders and business owners, this is true. We all start to hear things and we get to learn things and we start to repeat things, but not right. And that's some of the issues we have. And the other great philosopher that impacted my life is a gentleman by the name of George Costanza. And everybody knows who George Costanza is. He had another great phrase, and his phrase is, "It's not a lie if you believe it." And so that's some of the stuff I want to go over today, because there's a lot of misinformation on there about helmets and hard hats and what they are and what they do. And that's what I want to do, is level set the room on what that is and truly explain the standards and what they were designed to do when they came out to protect our workers' heads. And so why do we need to change? I'm going to level set you on what Z89, that's the ANSI standard that we use. That's the ANSI standard that OSHA requires us to have, the head protection for our workers. I'm going to level set on what 397 is, and that's a European standard. The same with the 12492 standard, that's European. I'm going to talk about some of the tests that were done. I'm going to talk about the new ANSI standards due to come out at the end of this year, and I'll open it up to some questions. But I like this, and I'm one of those weird people who go on vacation, and I take pictures of things that I find interesting, and this is a hard hat. If people don't know what a hard hat looks like, I'm sure everybody in this room does. It's a hard hat in a museum, in which I believe in my heart that's all hard hats should rest. It's in Seattle, and it's at the Boeing Museum. And if you look really closely, which is hard to do where you are, it says 1970. That was a year after I was born. And that technology you see in that museum is the same technology a lot of people are still wearing on their head. It hasn't advanced. And I do always like to ask a couple of questions. And anybody in this room from 1919? Anybody here in this room from 1919? That's over 100 years ago? I didn't think so. I very rarely do have someone raise their hand. And that's when we invented the hard hat, 1919. The last technological advancement of the hard hat was 1962. I'm pretty sure that no one in this room is using technology from 1962 to do their job today. And yet that's what we put on our workers' heads to protect them. All the speakers I listened to today, and very impactful was the last one. The first speaker told us about openness to change. And we had insurance, talked about the better your insurance, the lower your injury rates, the lower the cost to your business. And there was a speaker about AI talking about the same thing, open yourself up to change. I'm asking you to do the same thing. And I started to work on this change back in 2014. That's a long time ago. It's like 12 years ago. That's me in a picture at the African American Museum speaking at National Safety Week, National Stand Down Week. And the president's people came from across the street at the White House. That museum sits in Washington, D.C. And I was the only person on there wearing a helmet. And I was laughed at. People made statements I'm not going to repeat here today about the bicycle I rode to the job site or whatever my education level was, but why I should be wearing a helmet. But today, if you walked on that job site around Washington, D.C., 95% of the workers are wearing helmets. And so that's the push of the change. And there was a lot of adversity to helmets, and I'm sure there's people in this room that are averse to helmets for whatever reason. I'm hoping at the end of the day, maybe I can change your mind just a little bit. And some of the things that people used to say to me about why they didn't want helmets, and most of the people saying this are either not much of the workers, but mostly the safety professionals. I'm picking on a few people to my left. I'm just doing that. The brims are there to protect me. The brim is very important. My guys will not wear them. They're expensive. I know they're expensive. The chin straps will strangle a worker. They're going to hang from the job site. The EN standards are not European. They're European standards, not American. I call that Captain Obvious one. Helmets are funny looking. They're hot. And I've been wearing this my entire career, and I will not replace it. Okay. You replace your truck, you replace your phone, you replace your computer, you replace your iPad, but you won't replace what's protecting your CPU. This is what's between our ears is what controls our entire body. And when I started working in the business after I got out of the Navy, I started to wear safety shoes all the time. And I always wanted the best safety shoes, but you know what? You can spend $300 on a pair of Red Wings or shoes like that, but you can't wiggle your toes unless what's between your ears is working. We spend more money protecting our iPhone from injury than we do our head. And our last speaker talked about someone taking their life. And a lot of the people who take their life, one person in the crowd said it was due to injuries. And a lot of these people have traumatic brain injuries. You see that in the NFL with CTE. And what's happening to a lot of these players, that's a brain injury. And we spend the least amount protecting our brains. The number one question I never get asked, still to this day, how much safer is a helmet than a hard hat? Or how much more will my workers be protected? I still don't have that question answered. They tell me about how great the brims are, but they don't ask about how protected. So, again, like I said before, the current technology is over 60 years old. This is one of the fun facts I like to talk about, not so fun. 47% of all fall fatalities, according to the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, is related to a traumatic brain injury. So when people hit the ground, whether it's same working surface or from elevated, they're dying because they damaged their brain. 241 fatalities from dropped objects. And the OSHA standard states that we shall ensure that the affected employee wears a protective helmet when working in areas that have potential for injury and from falling objects. But what it really doesn't understand is what are we using to protect our head? Not the falling objects. That was done in 1919. We solved that problem, so to speak, except for the 241 that died. Let's look at the really shocking numbers. This is an area that I play in most of my time. My 34 years of doing this business, I work a lot at heights. We train people how to do high-angle rescues, work for fall protection. And so I love to marry the two because I think the helmet is a vital piece of your fall protection program and your PFAS, personal fall arrest systems. And we look at how many people died from falls. Last year was 844. You look at the fall injuries, 240,000. You look over the last 5 years, 4,249 people died from falls over the last 5 years. And there's another quote that I don't have in this thing right now that I talk about all the time. Is a quote from a gentleman by the name of Joseph Stalin. Does anybody know who Joseph Stalin is? He has a quote. He was the dictator of the communist country of the USSR. His quote was, "The death of one person is tragic. The death of many is merely a statistic." Right here we have a statistic. Every year we have a fall stand down. OSHA puts it out. They talk about the 844 people that died last year, 865 the year before, 885, 865, 850, and they're numbers. But they are people. And in your trade, as the last two gentlemen pointed out, these are very proud people, very highly trained people, and they came to work. I always hear about this younger generation. It's supposedly out there that doesn't want to work. I don't believe it, but that's what they say. But these folks showed up to work. They didn't get to go home. 844 of them last year. And the biggest fear I have as an employer, I have 27 employees who work for us. Probably nothing compared to what you all have, but there's something to me. And the last thing I want to have happen is knock on their door, their spouse's door, and say so-and-so didn't get to go home today because somehow I didn't protect them, or something happened on a job site that was tragic. Fall protection. Number one killer of construction workers. In the United States, You're going to get on my soapbox for just a second. We do the OSHA stand-downs. I'm not so big on that because the only two people who get the benefit of it are T-shirt companies and Chick-fil-A. Because I'm told to hurry up to talk about fall protection. Typically, I'm talking to a population that may or may not speak my language, and I don't have an interpreter. It's really saying what I'm saying. I need you to take fall protection seriously. This number is just as egregious as our last speaker's numbers, and they all can change. We can stop the fall protection issue in the United States if we took it seriously. And helmets and head protection are the number one thing. I don't say we need the ABCs of fall protection anymore. I always say we need the HABCRs, a helmet, an anchor point, a body wear, a connecting device, and a rescue plan. We can't do anything unless we have those 5 things when we're working at heights. And this industry is working at heights most of the time, all the time. And so this is what a traumatic brain injury is, and this is what the CDC says it is. And I'm not big into reading slides, but basically I'll explain it this way. If I cut my hand, I didn't wear my cut-resistant gloves that day, I cut my hand, I go to the doctor, I go to the clinic, I get some stitches. 2 weeks later, we get to see that the wound has healed itself. I take the stitches out, I go back to work. Not so with a traumatic brain injury. And so I think it's really important. You have to understand the medical community doesn't know enough about brain injury. If they did, they would have solved the CTE issue a long time ago with the NFL. But they haven't, because the brain is so complex. We haven't solved the problem. So I'm hoping to get everybody to think about solving this problem, make sure we're protecting the brains of our workers with the best that we can, the best technology we can. So what are the standards state? This is where I'm just going to speak to you in plain language, because there's a lot of people in a role that I serve most of my time as a sales professional that they will lie to you and tell you what's going on. I'm going to read the standards to you and tell you what it says. The ANSI standard, which is the law in the United States because it's incorporated by reference. So OSHA has incorporated that in Z89 standard. And it says helmets that meet the standard provide limited protection, but should be effective against small tools, small pieces of wood, bolts, nuts, rivets, sparks, and similar hazards. That's what the standard's designed to do. You notice it didn't say fall. It's not a football helmet. EN 12492, this is the European standard. They're going to use a word that they don't say in ANSI. A proportion of the energy of an impact is absorbed by the helmet, thereby reducing the force and blow sustained by the head. The structure of the helmet may be damaged in absorbing this energy. It's a true head protection standard. We don't have a head protection standard literally in the United States of America. What we have is a dropped object standard. That's it. And we're asking a product, and I'm not against hard hats, but we're asking a product that was designed 100 years ago to deal with wood, nuts, bolts, and rivets, to protect our bodies, our head, from a fall. And by the way, it's not just fall from heights, slips, trips, and falls, things that housekeeping can solve. 140 fall fatalities last year from same working surface. So it's not that I have to work really high in the air like you all do. There's 2 types of hard hats in the industry, and there's 3 classifications. A type 1 is 2 square inches to the top of the head, 1 impact. A type 2, and this is where people really get confused, especially my GC friends, and they believe that type 2 can do everything and everything. I'll explain why it doesn't or can't. Is one that can do here and a lateral. Notice I didn't say side. This is high lateral, so a 2 is here, a 1 is here. And a 2 will do a top impact and a high lateral. They have 3 classifications. C is conductive. That is one that's vented. A G is general. That is about 2,200 volts. And a class E is 20,000 volts of electricity. Those are the 3 classes, and that's what our standard is. Type 1 helmets, and this is the standard again, I'm reading verbatim from the standard, are intended to reduce the force of impact resulting from a blow to the top of the head. Notice no front, side, or rear impact protection. So when a worker falls, it is coming off your head. There is no chin strap required on a Type 1. Oh, and by the way, a Type 2, there is no chin strap requirement. Type 2 helmets are intended to reduce the force of impact resulting from a blow to the top or sides of the head. Notice no front, rear protection, and no requirement for a chin strap. In other words, when you fall, so does your helmet. Your helmet's designed to come off your head. And I wish I had some videos to show that you're proprietary. You can see testing. And when you see an impact of a hard hat, it is going to compress on your head with those straps to fly off. It's designed to fall off your head, not stay on your head. A helmet is designed to stay with you as you tumble and fall. And this is just norm comparisons, and it's really great to read, but I'm going to have this here, and Jackie's going to give it out to everybody so you can read it later at a later date. It's just showing you the different norms. Those are standards around the world and comparing the three that I'm going to talk about. A better approach is to take our American standard Z89 and marry it to a European standard 12492. And you're going to see in the future, at the end of this speech, that I'm going to tell you how our current ANSI committee is doing that. And if we take those two standards, one that does address head protection, and then one that addresses what OSHA wants us to do, and that's dropped objects, we can have the best of both worlds. But we do need a chin strap. We do need a suspension that comes down. We do need to have impact to the front, rear, and sides. So 12492 standard states that it has to have a front impact, it has to have a side impact, a rear impact, a top impact, has to have a chin strap, it has to be able to stretch 2 inches, and it has to release at 100 pounds. So that's the requirement of the European standard. And so if I take that European standard, marry it to our standard, I think I have the best of both worlds. I don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. And this slide just shows you the differences between the standards. 1, 2, and 3, those light green things are really the difference between the standards, between the American standard, which is dropped objects, and the European standard that is fully surrounded head protection, that allows the helmet to stay on your head. And if you notice at number 3, they're trying to pull that helmet from the back over the front. And that's why I can't simply just put a chin strap on my existing hard hat to hope that it's going to stay on the head. And if you read those chin strap accessories you'll see in a traditional American hard hat, you're going to see a warning, this is for high wind use only, not for impact. So don't attempt to do that. And so buy something that meets both the standards. And this is a visual of what the two different ones look like. And I'm not good with my right and left, but it's pretty obvious which one's the hard hat. Everybody in this room knows what that looks like. It's nylon. And where that nylon crosses, notice it lines up with it would line up if I flip that hard hat upside down or right side up. You'd see it marries to those 2 square inches where I'm impacting it. Those nylon straps are going to compress on the head upon impact and push that helmet off of your head, that hard hat off your head, to take that energy away from you. Where the foam inside the helmet is absorbing the energy and sometimes cracking. The shell's going to crack. I want the shell to crack. I had an interesting conversation with a bunch of people. I had one of the competitors was dropping a 26-pound weight and showing some helmets were cracking, showing that theirs was better than other brands because it didn't crack. I would tell you that's the biggest moronic thing I've ever seen in my entire life, because hardness doesn't help my head. If it was, then I would have steel hard hats. The problem with hardness is it's going to transfer that energy to my head. Just like our vehicles. Our vehicles have crumple zones to take the energy away from the human being. I need my helmet to do the same thing. Does that make sense? So I need it to crumble. I need it to crack. That's a benefit. So it stays away from me. This is how helmets work in general. It's multi pieces. It's 50. Most helmets are 50 different molds to make a helmet versus a hard hat, which is one mold. So you can see why there's a cost to the manufacturers in it. There's a lot of molds, 50 molds in one helmet, many complex parts working together. And so that's what makes it different. It makes it cost more, but we're getting greater protection. Using this foam since 1972. This foam I'm talking about, to take that energy, EPS, since 1972, because the rest of the industries that use helmets, motorcycling, equestrian, skateboarding, skiing, all noticed that nylon doesn't work, with the exception of one industry, construction. We kept using hard hats because hard hats are our identity. They make me look cool or whatever, but they don't protect my head. And we also, hopefully, you'll see this, hopefully in your kids' heads. Hopefully, you don't ever give a hard hat to your child when they get on a bicycle. Hopefully, you give them a helmet. If they're in lacrosse, football, hockey, they're using the same types of helmets that have absorbable foam, not hard hats. So we've been doing this. We know this technology is out there except for the trade that we work in. And so I hear the complaints. I know people are upset about the movement, but I'm going to tell you it's going to be better for you and your workforce. at the end of the day if you protect their heads. This is a study done by NIOSH in 2016. It was released in 2016. It was done by NIOSH after a fatality up in New York City. And it was funded by Liberty Mutual Insurance, Zurich Insurance, and I think Turner Construction funded it. And this Dr. Pan, who I got to speak with, came out with the study, and he noticed during the study period, just so everybody is aware, was 2003 to 2010. That does correlate with the Great Recession. And he had 2,200 fatalities in construction due to traumatic brain injuries during that study period. One of the lowest times we had in labor force in construction. 2,200 fatalities. Quiz question, there's no awards for it, but a quiz question. How many people over the last 100 years in the NFL, the real football, I don't know if my Brit friend's still here, the real football, how many people died on the field in 100 years on the field from a traumatic brain injury in the NFL? Who had zero? Zero. Right on, Jonathan. Good answer. Zero. But they settled a lawsuit for $100 million and spending tons of money on CTE. We had 2,200 fatalities in construction, according to this. Dr. Pan came into the ANSI standard. If you don't know who ANSI is, they're American National Standards Institute. They came out and said, they're the ones who manage the standard and build the standards. And Dr. Pan came in 2016. I was in the room, and he gave the results of this study to the entire ANSI committee. And by the way, that committee is made up of all the manufacturers of head protection. Stakeholders like yourself can be in those committees, and government agencies are there listening to Dr. Pan give this study. And the ANSI people can change the standard. They do it every 5 years. After he got done talking about the statistics you see right here, the chair of the committee said, "Thank you very much, Dr. Pan. We do not believe we have a problem." So the very agency that makes up these performance standards failed to act. Now, finally, they're going to act now. At the end of this year, hopefully, we'll see a new standard come out, and I'll tell you what that looks like. But this is what they found out in Dr. Pan's study. Although helmets in construction work are intended to protect workers from falling objects, penetrating hazard, and electrical shock, they do not always provide sufficient protection against falls. I will go even further. They cannot provide protection from falls. They were never designed for that. This is not an anti-hard hat movement. This is just saying you're using something that was never designed to protect you from a fall to do it. One of the funny things I see, we do a lot in the traffic safety business as a company, and some DOTs are moving to helmets. And I see some DOTs still wearing hard hats, and I'm not sure what they're afraid of flying out of the sky that hits them. You know, if you look at the traffic is a big issue. The danger is not flying from the sky and hitting you. The danger is getting hit by a car and tumbling down. If you look at the pit crews from the largest race teams, they're all wearing helmets. Same working surface. Interesting that all these folks have moved to helmets except for our industry. And so this is what happens in fall protection if we use a helmet versus a hard hat. So this is just a video just showing the difference of our fall protection engaging. And so when it drops, my D-ring is going to raise up in the air, and that full brim that people love is going to be disengaged from my head. This one is the perfect fall. It's straight down, the helmet's there, and that whip effect, it stays on the head because the helmet's designed to stay on the head during that tumbling fall. By the way, I've been doing fall protection for 34 years. I've never seen that type of fall ever in my life. It's too perfect. Usually it's a swing fall. They're tumbling. They're hitting other objects. Think about that worker's head, why that happens. So these are some of the things that you're looking for your head protection. It's a platform. It should be a platform. It should offer some hearing protection. It should offer eye protection. It should offer venting, cooling. There is a common theme when we first introduced it in 2016 to the largest general contractors. I'll tell you what happened. In Washington, D.C., there was a concrete contractor working off a high-load scaffold at 4 feet in the air, about 6 feet below when I need to, or 2 foot below when that contractor needed fall arrest. He had lost his situational awareness. Actually, it happened in 2015. He fell off the scaffold, hit concrete. His hard hat fell off. He was rushed to GW, George Washington Hospital. And if you don't know, anyone in this room, Ronald Reagan was shot. He went to that hospital. That is a great shock trauma, #2 in the country. They were going to put that worker in a drug-induced coma for 3 nights. That construction company, Clark, decided this guy's not going to make it. Find his next of kin. He was in California, hadn't seen his dad in 12 years. They flew him to Washington, D.C. to say goodbye to his dad. They were seconds away from sawing his skull open to allow that brain to swell so he can live. He ended up surviving. Good news. The other tragedy of this gentleman, he was 45 years old. He was a carpenter by trade. He could never do carpentry ever again in his life because of that traumatic brain injury. I can get to the cost of it. I'm sure those insurance folks before can tell you exact cost. It's in the millions of that one injury. And that's when Clark went out there and started looking, and they called me because of that funny picture I showed you in the beginning and said, hey, what's that funky thing you're wearing on your head? We want to talk. And they talked to all the other established American manufacturers and said, what do you have? And it was a year process. That one worker only fell 4 feet. A year later, after they transferred to helmets, they had another worker up 8 feet in the air, 275 pounds, leaned against the guardrail that's only rated for 200 pounds, fell back to the concrete. This time he's wearing a helmet. He fell backwards, slammed the concrete. He had damage to his shoulder, damage to his ribs, 0 traumatic brain injury. Helmet was cracked. His head was not. That's a success. That's a worker who got to go back to work after his other fall injuries. He lived that day. I promise you, if he had a hard hat on or no protection, he's dead because of those injuries. So look at 4 feet, traumatic brain injury, coma. 8 feet, no traumatic brain injury. And this is what the helmet does. So it's designed for total head protection, not just falling object protection. There's a new narrative out there, and that narrative basically is that there's another injury we have to worry about, and that's rotation of the brain. And there's a thing called WG11. You hear things like MIPS and wave cell. These are all types of products or licenses that mitigate the rotation of the brain, and a lot of the good helmets have something in there to do that. That's important too. The only problem with these standards is there's no agreeable test method. I don't know if people saw the Virginia Tech test method. Virginia Tech put out a study that was funded by some different parties, let's say. And they spent a lot of money doing testing, but their testing is different than other companies like WaveCell would do or MIPS would do. It's different testing, so you're going to get different results because the globe doesn't agree to it. The WG11 used the motorcycle standard. It's closest that we could come up with on the WG11. WG stands for Working Group 11. It's 11 manufacturers of head protection who just said, okay, we're going to think about doing this way. But that rotational testing is not agreed upon globally or even nationally. So you're going to get different results by other people. But the fact is that we're working towards it. And so there's a lot of companies out there making the change to helmets because they know. And I'm sure you're affected by this. You're affected by GCs telling you that you need to go to a helmet. There's a lot of confusion out there, though. And that's why I wanted you to understand the two different standards out there that can help you mitigate it. Because just because people say type 2 doesn't mean you're going to get front impact. Doesn't going to get rear impact. It's never tested to that. You saw that in what I went through in that norm. A type 2 hard hat is never tested to a front impact. It's never tested to a rear impact. But if you marry the two standards, you can get 360 degrees protection if you have a manufacturer that can manufacture to both. Now here's another secret. In the United States, there is nothing that we require a company to have to verify our claims of compliance. We're the only civilized country in the world. That's one of the first things Dr. Pan found out. First off, we're the only civilized country in the world that doesn't have a chin strap requirement, number one. Civilized. So I'm just make sure we're not going to other countries here that we don't consider civilized. So I can have let's say my buddy Jonathan who answered that question, we can start our own safety company, George and Jonathan Safety, and we can build a helmet tomorrow and stamp it ANSI, Z89, EN 12492, and we sell it in the United States, and guess what? You can't question me. You can question me. I can make out my certificate with my new laptop, put that up and print it for you, and there you go. In other countries, like Canada, for instance, they require what they call notified bodies to test it. We know about these notified bodies. We use them in our electrical stuff. Everybody here in this country is familiar with UL, Underwriters Laboratory, or SEI, Safety Equipment Institute, or CSA. These are all third-party notified bodies. We do not require that on any safety equipment. Not fall protection, not head protection, not hand protection, none of it. If I went to sell that same product with Jonathan and George Safety Products to Europe, we couldn't do it until we came up with a document from a laboratory that proved our performance claims. But we don't do that here. So I look around the room, and I say we're predominantly male, and so the problem with the predominantly male is we don't read. So I would ask that everybody read the instructions of the manufacturer that you choose to see what they're doing, and ask for their test data. Because when you do that, you'll at least know what brand you chose, not on price, hopefully more so than that they meet the standards you're asking it to meet. Now let me dive in to the new standards coming out. I didn't have slides because Jackie was saying you have to get my slides right away. So the new ANSI standard is coming out hopefully by the end of the year. It was supposed to come out at the end of last year. This is supposed to be released. I did a talk like this to the AGC over a year ago, and I had the ANSI committee with me. And they said this is going to be at the end of the year. Well, it didn't happen. Legalese got in the way. But the new standard is now doing what we asked them to do back in 2016. They've taken properties of EN 12492 and married it to ANSI Z89. And so, throw me one of those helmets. He's going to hand it to me. Very unsafe. He threw it to me. He didn't know if I could catch or not. So, the new standard is going to be a Z, let's say it's a type 1, the new standard is going to say plus. If it's a type 1 plus, it can take a top impact. It also is going to have properties of EN 12492, means it can take a front, side, and rear impacts, have a chin strap that has to stretch 1 inch and release at 100 pounds. So now they're going to marry to that. That's a type 1 plus. You can still buy a type 1 hard hat. It will not have any of those other provisions. They'll also have a type 2. Very good. Type 2 plus, meaning that type 2 plus, once I go to the plus, it's going to have the top and lateral, but it also has sides, front, rear, and chin strap retention as well. So you might see general contractors change their language because they were put in a precarious position with all these manufacturers. Back in 2014, when we walked on that job site with that funky helmet, there was one. Now there's about 70 or 80 of them. Everyone's putting foam in their hard hats and saying they meet the standard. Doesn't mean it meets it. It just means they have a lot of glue. So the GCs had to say, okay, do you meet it? Can you meet the standard? And they wanted, a lot of general contractors wanted to use an American reference, so they just said type 2. And I believe there's a lot of my competitors out there who wanted to throw in a lot of disinformation without reading the standard and say a type 2 can give you front impact because, see the foam? It has foam in it. So therefore, since it has foam, it must meet that standard. That is not true. That's totally false. And so the new plus, I think, is a good step forward. They finally recognized, and let me tell you, I don't think they recognized anything. They saw the market change. And this change in head protection is very unique because it was the first time construction told the standards what to do. It's the first time that construction said, time out. We need to protect our workers better than you are in the standards writing committee. We're going to change the narrative. And they had to respond. We used to wait for standard changes. I'm pretty proud of this group in here. I'm pretty proud of everyone else who had a say in it. One of my first customers in Washington, D.C. was one of the two gentlemen up speaking about AI, Scaffold Resources. They were one of the first companies to move to helmets back in 2016. So it came from the scaffold industry, was my first, because their safety manager at the time said, we got a problem. And so those are really, I think those are positive things for us, because what it's going to do for you is you can go out and then procure the proper product for your team and show that general contractor they meet the standard. I hope that general contractors are going to say, it's either type 1 plus or type 2 plus, because they now recognize that I get 360 degrees, because that's really what they're looking for, is really full, fundamentally strong head protection, not dropped object protection. And so I hope I was able to train, educate on the standards and what is coming out there and the why behind it. For me, the 844 people, the 4,296 people that died over the last 5 years, that's what I'm in this business to protect. I love to get those numbers to zero. I don't believe that those are impossibilities. There are other companies that did it. These are all success stories, and they all have their own success stories. It is moving. But this movement towards these products is going to lower those fatality rates. And there's a lot of other things. Just like the last group said, I can be up here for hours, talk about fall protection and fall rescue and keep people off the ground and ways to operate in restraint and not fall arrest in the first place. We don't have to fall. I can do all that. And I'm going to lower those numbers. We have to be open to doing that. We also have to adopt something else the Europeans do that we don't do so well. We have to stop looking at our workers like disposable items. Europe has a better fall fatality rate than we do because they value the folks up there and they recognize that it's very hard. That gentleman from Britain was standing up there and talking about how great the scaffolders were, and I agree with him 1,000%. And if you agree and train your workers the best way and look at them as that resource, that limited resource that they are, very limited resource. You know, a piece of scaffolding breaks, you get a new one. An employee breaks, you don't. And that's what we have to stop looking at and changing that narrative. Because that fall fatality, number one killer construction workers, it has to come down. We can't look at everybody. That trained, highly trained person can't be a fatality, a killed on a job site. So I hope that this starts to do that. I hope people start looking for different ways to reduce fall fatalities. And we're not doing a good job. The numbers speak for it. I mean, we've been hovering around 800 fatalities every single year. An initiative from OSHA is not going to stop it. The only way it stops is you all. When you don't tolerate people walking around without their fall arrest, when you adopt better PPE, helmets, to protect your workers. If I had it, these are just slides and slides of different companies. If I went too fast, I'm going to open up the floor. I was told I had about 25 minutes. And I know I stand between myself and the bar or whatever else you're doing tonight. But the coolest thing about today was you started the day with a George and you ended the day with a George. And that can't be a better day. My wife complains about that. But anyway, do we have any questions about the helmets, the hard hats? Yes, sir.
In the new standard, is rotational part of that or not?
No, sir. There's really, like I said before, there's really a problem. And they said it, and I don't have the official document. I only have the document that was sent out for people to comment, and that went out at the beginning of the year. They clearly state in the preamble that it does not address rotational impact. And the problem with rotational impact, I'll say it again, and I appreciate your question, there is no agreed test method. So MIPS is going to come out with something, WaveCell is going to come out with something, we're going to come out with something. It says different things because our methods are different. Does that make sense? But it's still a good topic to talk about.
So will you manufacturers have that as an option?
Absolutely. So I represent CASC, so we have it in our helmet. It's built in all of our helmets.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You had the chart earlier that showed some of the products, and they had a WG11?
Yes, sir. Working Group 11.
So that's just a group of manufacturers that's trying to standardize?
Yes, it's a European group. Yes, sir.
So in let's just say a general opinion, is that better than without the WG11?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the fact that they're testing rotational impact is important. I think that's a start. I don't necessarily dig everything about the Virginia Tech standard, but it's a start, and that's what I like to have. I want to have the conversation. I think these are all good starts. But some people would say, well, I'll wait for a standard to come out to change. I don't know how many employees you want to lose by that. So make the changes as they go on. We're going to get better year after year, but it's a start.
And to go along with that, I know that you've got companies that have worked on that same type of rotational protection when it comes to, for instance, bicycle.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So somebody's out there looking at it from a different perspective. I'm assuming it looks so much like a hockey helmet. I can't.
So, okay. CASC at its purest form is a bicycle helmet manufacturer. That's what they do. They make skiing helmets, bicycle helmets, equestrian helmets, all those performance activities, and we're able to take those performance activities. So there's a couple of people out there who take exactly what you're saying, those performance sports, and put it in, and that's where it's coming from. So yes, there is some of that. When he started a couple of years ago, he was a motorcycle helmet person. So he knows about traumatic brain injury and knows about that. So that's really the leaders in this space are the people who did that, and that came from bicycling. And that's why it looks that way.
And it makes sense for us to, why don't we utilize some of the experience and testing that's already out there?
And that's a great thing, and that's what we're doing. Another thing that some people brought up was heat. And what do? We went to, and Clark did this, and Georgia Tech did it. They did their own studies. There's an NFL test lab in Atlanta, Georgia, because workers claimed that this thing is hotter because it has foam in it. And the NFL lab kind of laughed, and they said, hey, every helmet we change to mitigate their traumatic brain injuries, they say it gets hotter. Most of the heat's coming from the human being, right? And so when they did the actual test, just to give you guys exact data, it was 105 degrees at 80% humidity, which is really humid. The hard hat they tested versus the helmet, the hard hat came in at 105 exactly, no cooler. The helmet came in at 105.02. A vented helmet came in at 103. And there was no airflow. So one of the things that I like to say is, do we really need, I know there's they talked about contract provisions earlier where people love boilerplate. Army Corps of Engineers loves to have, every helmet on this, hard hat on this job site needs to be a Class E, 20,000 volts. Do we really? Does our hazard analysis state that I need to be 20,000 volts? Could my workers work in vented? Maybe I'm going to cut down significantly on their heat stress. So we're doing that. Great questions. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Mr. Stallings. Yes.
Would you like this?
Thank you so much.
Here you go.
Yeah, he's very soft-spoken.
I appreciate that. Well, we do appreciate you coming and helping us understand some of this stuff. So you stole my, are you reading my thoughts? I was going to ask you about the heat.
I sure hope not.
Yeah, you don't want to be in this.
No, I don't.
Right. But so at any rate, when we talk about the cost difference, and you said we have insurance folks here, maybe even just anecdotally, could you talk a little bit about the difference in the cost of the helmets, and then how might just one incident with a brain injury, if we save that, could it pay for the helmets?
I don't know. Are any insurance people still in here? Have any? Are you on the broker side, or any of your carriers giving discounts?
They're at the bar.
Okay, I
It
heard.
should be, but yeah, we don't see that very often. No, it's kind of just the way the insurance carriers think about it as an expectation. They do not offer discounts for that. Do I agree with that? No, but that's kind of.
So she's going to advocate for that change.
Yeah.
Don.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, they just not discounts offered often.
I heard. I don't know if it was Clark went to Zurich and Zurich did something for them when they moved to helmets, but I can't quantify that. That would be just totally me making it up. But it would be. I think it should be just like it used to be when you got a car with airbags, you saved on your insurance, or you decided you're going to wear your seatbelt, you saved on your insurance. But the cost of the helmet, your number one question, helmets cost more than hard hats. Let me say that right off the bat. In some cases, 10 times more. However, I'll use Clark as the base case. When they had 3,000 employees when we started this with them back in 2015, 2016. They used 6,000 hard hats a year. So that was 2 for every worker. They certainly did not do that when they switched to helmets. So the usage went way down. The lifespan is a lot different depending on manufacturer. So you are required on hard hats to change your suspension annually, which I know no one does. But you're supposed to. And then you're not going to have liability if you don't change that suspension. Your manufacturer will go like this. And your shell every 5 years. And the manufacturer I represent, we're a 10-year product, not a 5-year. And there's nothing to change on the inside. So there is some cost savings that way. They penciled it out. They broke even at 3 years. And then he started to save after that point. That was their pencil on that. Did I answer your question? Yes. And so some other people talk about the rotation of the workforce. Some of our customers, if this person leaves in a couple months, they can buy the helmet from them. They can do that, or they wash them. Some people wash them and put them in washing machines, and that's okay too. And it can be reserviced, so to speak. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say on top of that, I think from what I've picked up on this presentation, that having the helmet, if it saves you from one claim or one injury or something like that, it will pay for itself tenfold for eternity, pretty much. What that claim would be versus having the right protection would be extremely different, cost-wise.
The Clark executive said that the one injury, not even after the worker was settled with, was somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 just in the medical side.
Yep.
Anything else was just treating them at GW Hospital. And he said we could have bought helmets for every one of our employees times 2. That one injury, to your point.
Yep.
And so that's, and I look at what the insurance folks with your group did a great job. And when I look at what, and I have 27 employees, nothing great, but it's costly to me. And if we can keep our injuries down, that really means money back. And I'm sure everyone in here knows about their EMRs. If we can do that, I mean, we're banking money and we're investing in our best resource. So, any other questions? Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Usually I get, oh, there you are.
Looking into your crystal ball, if these all get passed and adopted by OSHA, does that mean completely phasing out hard hats, making them illegal and going to this? And if so, how long do you think that would be?
Oh, good question. Okay. Usually I do a civics class at this point when people talk about OSHA, so I'll do it like this. When was the last time Congress agreed on anything? Right? Because that's what it's going to take to change OSHA, right? OSHA is all, I like to say in my fall protection talks, all OSHA is law enforcement. And I love, 1972 was the last time the MUP standard was changed, lifts. So I don't expect OSHA to do anything. They may be lobbied by the ISEA, that's the International Safety Equipment Association. It manages the ANSI standards with the ASSP. They may get lobbied with it, and they may write that change in. My personal thing is to safety, how I look at things. OSHA is the bottom, that's the minimum standard. ANSI standards are consensus standards, so it takes them forever to agree on something, hence 12 years of them looking at this. I love best practices. And what I picked up with our first speaker, our second speakers on AI, insurance, that we need to be the group moving forward ahead of that. Does that make sense? So in my mind, I'm not worried about what OSHA does. If I'm way ahead of OSHA, and I'm winning. I'm winning with my employees, I'm winning with my competition, because let my competition continue to get injured. Because I'm going to get there for the jobs. And I'm going to have happy employees that show up to the job site. That's how I look at it. There's another thing too about it, and that's the marketing. If we have marketing people. If you have great equipment on, you look good, that means people look at you, making you look like a professional. That's a side item to it. But I hope I answered your question about OSHA. I don't expect OSHA to change anything. Anyone else? Thank you very much for attending. I appreciate sticking around for something. I appreciate your time. Thank you.